Today, we're dragging and dropping a list component with conditionals. We'll walk through it. Let's get right into the video. All right, let's get into step one. Step one is to set up the Qwik component with starter code. And that's what this little block here is for. I'll go paste that code. Let's change the name to the name of the component that we're going after here. So in our case, that is social links. That's what we're going to use to make a list with conditionals. We are renaming the interface from TypeScript, the name of the Qwik component, and also the argument of the component that uses the type props that we've renamed. Next, we'll add the social links props, just so the editor doesn't complain at us. I'll leave that as any. All right, so as a reminder, we are doing this because what this enables us to do is when we have the component that we're creating, it allows us to transfer the styles directly from when we apply styles on this. So watch this. I'll save that. And we can see it now applies the styles directly in the editor. That's exactly why we want to do that. Now now that we pasted everything here, quick walkthrough, we have the interface from TypeScript. This is for custom editable regions, which we're not using in this case, so I'm going to get rid of that. We're going to get the styles from Figma using the autoHTML plugin. I'll show you how to set that up. I'll quickly show how to set it up. You'll want to make sure that SVG as image is turned off for now. Use rem is turned on, base size 16, and then you want to refresh the selection when you set that up to HTML. And then we have the basic component structure for Qwik is the front-end framework using in our scenario. Okay, we don't need the ... there. So how to register it is we go to the builder registry file. I have this set up to what we're aiming for. So you'll set up the component, which is the import. So for example, social links, and then if it's red, you'll want to click it and then auto import it with autocomplete. The name will be the custom component. In this case, it would be social links. You want to have no wrapped true. That's just how we're making components. Can have children to true. Again, that's just how we're making components. And then input would be an array, and inside is where we put the inputs that we want. It's a plural. Okay, so then the inputs that we want for social links, as an example, if I go into the Figma file, for the inputs we can see here, let's go to the inspect tab. We see for this component that the inputs are true, false for showing each social media. So we're going to change that a bit actually. What we're going to do is we're going to have the inputs be the link to the social media and the actual SVG asset or icon or code for the social media. So we're going to walk through a custom input as code and custom input as string, which will act as the URL. Now for the inputs for social links, what we're going to do is we're going to set up let's just delete that because we have it here already. For the inputs, we're going to do the name is social links, the type is list. Again, to get this, we're going to go to the builder.io custom inputs, and this is where I'm getting it, list right here. Let's go back to the definition. The default value, let's leave that as an empty array for now. The subfields is an array, and it's going to be objects for each type of input that we want. So the URL, you can actually do type URL. That's not very visible in the builder docs, but you could do that. And that's what we're using here for our URL. And then the icon, which will be code. Again, this isn't exactly covered in the docs, but I'm going to show you how to do it with Builder. So now that we have an idea of what that is, I walk through this. Let's get the AutoHTML code. So we're going into Figma, plugins. I showed you how to set it up. Let's copy and paste all of the HTML. We're going to put all of the HTML in here. What we're going to do is just So for the social class, we're gonna cut that out. We're gonna put it after this. We're gonna get rid of that div, and then we're gonna scroll to the bottom. There should be another div here. Let's get rid of that extra div, and that should stop it. Yep. I'm gonna Control A, and I'm going to format the selection. That should fix everything, so it's a bit more readable. I'm gonna save now. Our social links now has a list here, and that corresponds to the list that we described here. And inside of each list, when we press that, you can see that there's the URL and the icon, which is code, which is exactly what we described right here. All right, let's go back to social links. Now, technically, if we look at this component, even though the designer defined it as a bunch of different social medias, what we could do instead is abstract this one level higher, generalize it a bit further. So when we copy the CSS, let's ignore the first two from AutoHTML and grab these guys. Okay, copy that. We'll go to the empty style. Paste, save. Let's go back to Builder. And we can see it right there. Look at that. We can see all of these styles. We can see there's scroll bars. So that's the step that we'll get to a bit later to tinker with everything. So we got the starter code. I showed you how to get the AutoHTML, how to set it up, how to copy and paste the CSS and the HTML into the starter code example. We already walked through what this does and how to do it. Add custom component logic if needed. So that's the step we're going to do now. We're going to generalize this a bit further to make this work for our needs a bit better. So looking at this, we can see that if we go to actually the Figma file, we can see that all these styles are like pretty much the same. So really there's two things here. We have the socials, which is the wrapper, the socials layer, and then we have the style for all of the icons. And there's some that use a wrapper around each icon. Let's just see what happens when we just use the first two as examples. Socials for the container or the wrapper, and the Facebook class for the actual style. So what I'm going to do is we are going to delete everything. We're going to delete all the SVGs. Okay, so let's use these down arrows in VS Code to get an idea of what's going on. Okay, we just have an extra div. Okay, so now if I save this and I go back to the drag and drop editor, yes, we see that we have one social icon. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is clean up the styles too. We don't need the rest of the styles. And I'm going to actually just change the name just for our sanity. So for Facebook, I'll change that to social icon. And then we have socials. Now if I go to the SVG, the class is Facebook. We'll change that to social icon. Not icons, icon. Yep. Save. Make sure everything looks the same in the drag and drop editor. It does. Okay, so now that we have this set up, we're going to make this a list because we have the list set up for the custom input, right? So what we're going to do is the container or the wrapper. We're going to do these two curly braces, which tells the JSX or TSX, tells us to evaluate the code. So what are we going to evaluate? First, we want to see, so there is a case when there is no items in the array. Because for example, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing props dot, and if you remember, whatever the name of the input is, in this case, social links from the builder registry is what this will be called, social links. And that's an array, so we're going to do dot map, which is a function that just iterates through the array. Inside is a anonymous function. That's our basic setup. Now inside of this argument of the anonymous function, we're going to do social link, singular, not plural. Social links does not exist, so that's just up here. We're just going to tell our interface That's social links. Leave it, social list is just any for now, so it just doesn't complain. And just leave that as any for now. Okay, now inside of this here, we're going to actually render the SVG. So I'll cut that and paste that here. Let's just format everything. So what this is saying is that for each social link in the list, render an SVG. Let's see how that works. What's missing here is we need to, because we did the curly bracket notation, we need to return the SVG. And then we just format everything again, save. All right, now you can see that we have 2 for everyone that we add. There's 2. And for some reason, if we delete, let's see, watch what happens when I delete this. The whole thing is here. So what we'll want to do is add a conditional just in case, because sometimes lists might break in your custom component. You'll want to check if social links is an array. So that's a native function in JavaScript called array.isArray props.sociallinks. So if it's an array and that's one way to do inline, to evaluate all in one line if the social links is an array, if it's a list, and then render it. And that's how you use the and in an inline evaluation like that. Now we're gonna add a conditional here. If the number of links is at 0, we shouldn't show this component at all. That could happen. So what we're going to do in this class here, we already had the yellow brackets for the class, which means we're evaluating this, which is true. We're evaluating the class because we don't know what the ID is at runtime. Outside of the template string, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna check if the array, if props.sociallinks is an array, and if it is, we're gonna check if the list, we'll check if the length is greater than 0, and if it's greater than 0, do this. Otherwise, this is a ternary operator, which is the question mark, and then now a colon, so we're gonna evaluate, this question mark means, is all of this true? And if it is, evaluate all of this, the true side is on the left side of the colon, and the false side is on the right. So if prop social links is an array, and the length is greater than 0, do what we were normally doing. Otherwise, let's take advantage of a Tailwind class, because we have Tailwind installed in our front end. Let's take advantage of a class called Hidden. Let's save that. Let's take a look at this. So now this should disappear. Perfect. And then when we add a social link, it should appear. Add another one, it should render another Facebook. Great. Okay, next what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the URL and actually make it click somewhere. So to do that, we're going to go back to our VS Code. We're going to return for each social link, we're going to return the A tag. The A tag has an href attribute property. And we're going to set that. We are setting up the URL. We did an A tag, href, social link, URL. So what that is here, social link is right here, which is the item from the social links array. Social link.url is one of the inputs. And then it's all red here because you must return a single element. So we're going to use this fragment in Qwik, which is just an empty tag. We're going to cut all that and paste it inside of there. We're going to select everything and format the selection. We're going to save. And actually, one more thing before we check it out. We're going to cut the SVG and we're going to stick it inside of the A tag. Now we're going to save it, and I'm going to go back here. All right, I'm going to make this URL, the first URL, google.ca. Let's click it. Or actually, it's a bit hard to click stuff in the Builder editor, so we're going to open a preview tab. And then we're going to click the first one, and look at that. It goes to Google. And the second one, if I look at the inputs of the drag and drop, doesn't have anything. So if I go back to that preview tab, nothing happens with the second one. I'm going to close that tab. All right, we're looking really good. Now what we need to do is get this code working. To get that working, we're going to actually replace this SVG, which is a child of the A tag. We're going to change that to a div with a class called social icon, and we're going to dangerously set the inner HTML and evaluate that to the props.icon. Oh, sorry, not the props, the social link, which is an item of the social links array once again. And then we're going to get rid of this SVG code. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to cut the SVG code. It's in my clipboard. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back here. You'll see that there's nothing here right now until I paste this SVG code, and look at that. It just appeared. And I'll do another SVG code. Facebook is back. All right, so now we just need to fix this scroll bar here. To do that, we're going to paste this code here. This is a way to hide scroll bars. So this is for Chrome, Safari, and Opera, and then this is for the other browsers. So you would want to put this for the class .socials, and then this is the pseudo selector for this way to get rid of it for these browsers. And then this one doesn't require anything. And you would change the .socials to the name of your container or wrapper tag. So I'll copy that. Paste that here. Get rid of this, move that, put that here. I'll save that, go back to our builder, drag and drop, and look at that, everything is gone. Now we can see that the height, I am scrolling and it's not looking right. Now it's doing that scrolling behavior, so what I would do is I would do overflow y hidden. And now it doesn't scroll. Perfect. And now how it would work is if I go back to Figma and I ask for, or not I ask, I inspect a different one, like to check out Instagram. Okay, here we go. I copy and paste this SVG, I go into Figma, I go to the social links, the second one, let's replace that. And there we go, look at that, Instagram is now here. And that's it.